Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I am your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Chloe Thomson from Been There, Dug That, and also Sprout School. Chloe does a fair bit within the horticulture industry. So she does speaking, emceeing, presenting, and garden tours. She's also got the Sprout School, which she's teaching people about all things gardening in that. And we do talk a fair bit about that in this chat, and it sounds like a pretty interesting course to be involved in, and quite a bit to learn from in that course. And there's also my very first discount code, which we'll talk about in that. So that's Joel50 if you're wanting to jump into that course before the doors close. But Chloe's got a great story about how she started working for a particular company, left on good terms, and then when the company she went to, she was made redundant in that. The previous company that she left on good terms for contacted her for more work. So it's a good example that good things happen to good people. And if you look after people along the way, that favour will be returned when you least expect it. So I mentioned Chloe does presenting, and there's a good bit of advice in this chat about how to present to camera. So she's coached someone on the best way to do things. So I asked her what the best way and how that is different presenting to camera to presenting to a live audience. And she also talks about how she makes her content so like with the end result in mind of what she's wanting to produce. So that was a good point as well. So a lot of good tips in this chat with Chloe. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Chloe Thomson. Chloe, thank you very much for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
Oh, how did I start? Thanks so much for having me, by the way, Joel. So, how did I start in the industry? So, I finished high school with the idea that I wanted to go off and study something that didn't involve me sitting in an office 24/7. And when I said that to careers advisors at my school, and when I did all those careers, survey things that you do in year 12, I don't even know if they still do those, but if they still do, I was coming up with things like park ranger. And I was like, I don't want to be a park ranger. I don't want to work in whoop-de-woo by myself. And so the careers advisor said, right, go and do agricultural science. So God knows why the careers advisor had never heard of horticulture, but off I went to do agricultural science at Melbourne Uni. And while I was doing ag science, it's a 4-year degree, or at least it was. In the first year, you're forced to do everything. So you have to do the animal subjects, you have to do the plant subjects, and you have to do the economic subjects. The animal subjects were just disgusting because you had to dissect things. Animals shit. Am I allowed to swear? It's just yuck. I was like, God, no, I am not doing that. That's disgusting. The economic subjects went completely over my head. And anyone who knows me in finance that knows that's still very true. But the plant subjects just hit home with me. And I was just like, I like this stuff. Yeah, this is what I could do. This is something for me. So I finished uni, and I actually went on to work for my very first job out of uni was working for the Victorian Strawberry Growers Association, or the Victorian Strawberry Farmers. And what I did with them is mostly comms and marketing role. And so that's where I sort of got that comms and marketing sort of influence and connection with plants. And from there, everything else just snowballed. I worked for them for about 4 years. Then I had a number of roles working in similar comms, marketing, kind of sometimes a bit of sales roles for a couple of different organizations that were all involved in horticulture. And it started to be much more home gardening horticultural businesses that I worked for that sold to the general public. And it was while I was working for those businesses that I started doing a lot of presentations, public talks, garden club talks, workshops, education sessions, and started to realize that I weirdly liked it. And yeah, so everything just sort of snowballed from there. And somewhere in that mix, I also did a graduate diploma of horticulture as well.
So did you finish that ag science degree for that 4 years?
Yeah, so I did. And I just ignored all the finance and the animal subjects once I didn't have to do them anymore and
Yeah.
focused on the plant side of things. Yeah.
And how did you go doing those first talks? Like, were you naturally like an extrovert, or was it?
Well, it's funny, when I was at high school and even when I was at uni, I was that kid who was terrified of public speaking, right? So I would be the kid who, no joke, whose hands would shake violently with the piece of paper, the kid who would be a ball of sweat. And I remember even in high school being the kid who refused to, would try and feign sickness when I had drama class at school. But I discovered that when I was talking about something I was passionate about, e.g. gardening, if I was talking about the products that the company was selling and how people could use them in their gardens to be better gardeners, or if I was just talking about gardening in general, that just all faded away. And I was like, this is great. So yeah, if I'm talking about gardening, I'm fine. Just don't get me to talk about animals or finance.
Well, luckily we don't have any animal chats on this podcast. But yeah, it makes perfect sense. Like I'm actually a quiet person. Like I don't talk much at all, which is weird that I have a podcast, but
Yeah.
it's good that podcast is about something that I love. So I'll talk about landscaping until I can't talk anymore. But yeah, if you talk about anything else, I'm just not interested in it. So like I'm happy to sit in the car with someone and have complete science,
Yeah.
complete silence if we've got nothing to talk about. But
Yeah.
but yeah, if you love what you're talking about, then yeah, you're passionate about it, and it all just comes naturally as well.
It does. Yeah, it just comes naturally. And I love one of the things, and I often, my Sprout School students in my online course often say this to me, you're really good at explaining it in a way that we just get it. So I really do enjoy that part of particularly speaking and communicating and educating about gardening, speaking to people who sometimes have no idea, or sometimes, they've been that DIY gardener or learnt from mum or dad for years, but then they've never quite gotten a concept. And then we talk about it and they're like, penny drop.
Yeah, that's what I find difficult when you're trying to do a course or teach a course. There's so many different levels of people's knowledge, so it's hard. And that's what I hate about some courses is that they, um, like you might have a bit of an idea about it, but they'll target everything towards the people who've got no idea. So then it's not as interesting. So yeah, that can be a challenge doing the course. So it's good that you've got people who are, understanding it.
Yeah, yeah. And I went to speaking about my course. I've had students from 15 to about 65 years of age. And I've had people who, yeah, have never, literally they're calling me and they're like, I have a brand new house, nothing on it. So, complete novice to gardening. And then I've had other people who, yeah, have, 65 years old and have been gardening for the last 30 years. But they just want to, reignite the spark, or they just want to turn on some new knowledge, which is really cool.
So yeah, speaking of your course, it's called Sprout School. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So at Sprout School, I started it in one of those hideous Melbourne lockdowns where no one could go anywhere or do anything. And it started because I was being inundated on the DMs on Instagram. So people were sending me photos and going, what should I plant here? And I'd reply and go, well, what way does it face? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, well, what's the soil like? And they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, right. So there's the first two modules of Sprout School for you. So yeah, we dive deep into things like soil. We look at light. I even get them sketching when people are like, yeah, but I'm not a landscape designer. I'm like, neither am I. But you can still sketch, like the design for my garden looked like a dog's breakfast, but you can still sketch and you can still have a go. So it's those little basics that anyone can have a go at that I really encourage people to do.
So did it take you long to get it up and running after you had the idea to do it?
I reckon it was probably about 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
It was quite quick. Yeah, I did use a business coach to help me along the way. She's a close friend as well, so that helped. So, yeah, having that little bit of knowledge behind me. And I've, since done I'm still in a business coaching group, and I find that really helpful. And it's, designed for women who have online courses or online businesses. So, yeah, if anyone, yeah, is looking for business coaches or, feels like they need that help, 100% go and see if there's a coach in that area. It's amazing.
Who? Well, I reckon I've seen it because I was looking for the same thing for someone who to help with helps us to do a course who knows what they're doing. And I've
Yeah.
seen a couple. So who was the one you used?
So right at the very beginning, I used a lady called Caitlin Marwaha. She doesn't actually do that side of business coaching anymore, but she's a stylist. So a clothing stylist. And she had a very similar concept. So she had an online course to learn styling. And so she helped me with my online course to learn gardening. And then I've done different group coachings. I've been with Her Empire Builder, which was good, but not amazing. And it was extremely expensive. At the moment, I'm with MG, which is EM and then GEE. She's got an online program and it's only $97 a month. And it's honestly the same sort of value as Her Empire Builder, which was $500 a month. So,
Bit of a difference.
just a bit of a difference.
And have you tweaked it much since you've had the course? Like, do you change it each year to improve it based on what your learnings are?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny how I've definitely tweaked it as I've gone along. It's not so much that I've tweaked the learning in the modules. I have added extra little bits along the way. And what I have is a huge library of guest speakers who've come in at various times to give little masterclasses and webinars. So there's this massive library of, I don't know, there's at least 50 videos in there from people talking about what they're experts in, kind of like a podcast, but in a video format,
Yeah.
really, and often with a PowerPoint presentation. So yeah, there's a lot of learning inside the course as well. And obviously people get 6 months in a private Facebook group as with me as well. So, they use that to post up, what should I do here? What should I do there? This is my sketch. This is what my soil looks like. And this round, actually, there's a change. So this round I've gone for 6 months rather than 12 weeks in the Facebook group. So I used to do 12 weeks. And the last round in particular, everyone was just like, no, we want more time. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, 6 months.
Yeah, that's a surprisingly good part of those courses I've found because I did the Hungry Wolf course, the concreting course that Ollie did,
Yeah.
and then as part of that, you're in a Facebook group, and that's been awesome because other students in there are showing their work or asking questions, saying, "What do I do here? What's happened here?" So they're not just getting that one-on-one feedback. Everyone else is learning from it as well, and then talking to each other, and yeah, so that's one of the best parts about the online courses.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what people sort of said to me. And I twigged that, yep, clearly I need to tweak that. So, and because it's online, it is a lot easier to tweak. It's just
Yeah.
all in the back end, fiddling with checkouts and, pricing and the library, but it is actually easier. But it was a huge learning curve. I never used the software before, but it's been fun.
Yeah.
It's a new skill in my belt.
Yeah, what sort of people do you find doing the course?
As I said, a huge range of ages. Until the last round, definitely more females than males. But the last round, I definitely had a few more males. Don't ask me why, boys. Come on in. It's definitely not a girls only thing. But it's a real mix. Sometimes I have, well, in each round, there's always guaranteed to be, mums, working people, single people, people who live on acreage, people who live with courtyards, people who live in just normal suburban blocks, rural people, suburban people. Yeah, all over. It's
Yeah.
all over.
Yeah,
And
'cause
it's
I
quite
saw.
fun. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say it's quite fun because it's never a huge group of people. I think 28 or 30 has been the biggest group. So, I get to know everybody's, spaces, and I'm out on Google Maps trying to search where they are if they say a place I've never heard of. So, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and you get them all around Australia.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't had anyone from the Northern Territory,
All
but
right.
otherwise everywhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And I saw that Nick from Lawns and Good, Nick, who was on last week, he actually just mentioned that he did your course, and
Yeah.
yeah, he couldn't talk more highly of it.
Yeah, so he did that last round, and I've loved watching his garden, particularly the one that we sort of helped him do and inspired him in the course. I've loved watching that little section. Obviously, Nick's into lawns hugely, but he had so many garden beds around that lawn that were in need of plants. And so it was a really great time to just, yeah, teach him about the side of gardening that he didn't really know a lot about. And I actually had a number of students in that round who were garden maintenance folk, lawn fanatics, and they've used the knowledge that they learn in the course on their clients. When their clients have been saying, how do I fix my soil? And they've been like, well, I now know that you should do this, this, and this. Or what's wrong with that plant? Well, that looks like it must be a fungal problem or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
such a great idea. Is there's certain things that you'll learn, like not everyone who has a garden maintenance business is horticulturally trained. So rather than doing a full qualification, they could actually do your course, and then they're going to get a lot more knowledge than if they do nothing.
Yeah, yeah. And look, someone said to me, I've done Cert 3 in horticulture and this was better. And
Mm,
I went, oh, that's kind of cool.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, there you go.
What sort of things are people learning in the course? Like, is it about design or is it more about uh, helping your garden improve?
Yeah, I'd consider it all aspects of gardening. So we start off with soil and light and orientation. Then we move on to a little bit of garden design basics, looking at different styles, different plant choices, plant selections, plant combinations, color, hardscaping, designer tips and techniques that they use. So there's definitely that. But then we also cover a lot of the gardening things like pests, diseases, fertilizing. The fertilizing module is a what for so many people because I really talk about what fertilizers are, what the key ingredients are, people have come with a huge, I get people to do an audit of their garden shed, and it's amazing. People have this garden shed, and I'm like, that, and that are all the same product in different packaging. So yeah, if anything, I'll save you money on your fertilizing for sure. Pests, diseases, I mentioned, we do indoor plants. And then, yeah, there's the huge library of masterclasses. And there's things in there like native plants. There's a couple of garden designers that I've had chat, like Emmeline Bowman, Peter Shaw. There's a few others in there as well, whose names don't come to mind right now. But there's a bunch of masterclasses in there, one on propagation, one on citrus, those type of things.
Yeah, right. There's a fair bit, isn't it? So how long do people have? Is it sort of a like they can do it at their own time, or is it?
So it's 7 modules of pre-recorded videos, and they're broken down into shorter chunks. I think the longest video is about 20 minutes, but that's like the longest video. And then a lot of them are like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So you can watch them on your phone. The app that holds the videos, you can download it on your phone. Then, so you can watch those modules as you please. I do prompt you to watch one a week if you possibly can, because once a week for 10 weeks from the day that the doors close, I do a live Q&A session. And I structure that Q&A so we're looking back at the module that I prompted you to watch that week. But the thing is, people come to them and they're like, I haven't watched the module yet. And I'm like, don't worry, you'll still learn, because we'll still be talking about that particular topic. Someone will bring up something in their garden. And the live sessions are a great chance for, people have turned their camera on and, showing me something in their garden or showing photos during those live sessions. And sometimes, there's only 5 or 6 people in the live session. So they can be quite, intimate for an hour's conversation about gardening. So that's 10 live Q&A sessions with me. And then you've got 6 months in the private Facebook group. So you can use that anytime you like. And I will get back to you with answering your questions and things. So
Yeah, awesome.
yeah.
And you mentioned when it closes, because it's only open from a certain period, and it's open at the moment and closing on, is it the 20th of Feb?
Yeah, closing on the 20th of Feb is when we kick off this round. So I'm opening it twice a year. So in autumn and in spring. And here's another example of that, small business adapting. I tried to open it in winter, even though I think that is the best time to learn, because it's too bloody cold to go outside. And, it's the best time to do a lot of the heavy structural work in your garden. Obviously, you'd know that, but just you're not dripping in sweat. But yeah, the general public just did not seem keen on gardening in winter. So autumn and spring it is. So they're the 2 times I open it. So yeah, for sure. If you want to jump on, then yeah, autumn time would be a great one to jump on.
And for a very, very first for my podcast is we've actually got a discount code for this
You
one.
do, yeah. I'd love to offer your listeners $50 off the price. So if they use the code Joel50, they'll get themselves $50 off. So yeah, thanks for that, Joel.
It's very exciting to have. I've heard other podcasts and they've all got codes for certain things, and now there's my first one, so it's very exciting.
There you go. That's super cool. Yeah, and if they are a business, then yes, I can issue them with a tax receipt as well.
Yeah, cool. So going back to your communications and marketing in the business, were you building a lot of contacts then that you've used going forward? Like you're making a lot of industry contacts?
Yeah, I suppose I have. So the role that I do now, so I don't know if people know, but I am actually 100% freelance now. So how old's my eldest son? He's 11 turning 12. So say 12 years ago, I was made redundant from a business who shall not be named while I was very heavily pregnant with my eldest son. And when I was made redundant, obviously, huge shock to the system. They ended up getting rid of about 4 or 5 of us who had sort of that marketing comms title. And, it was a shock. I obviously was heavily pregnant, sort of didn't think about it, but, obviously had baby and then thought, okay, now what am I going to do? But the amazing thing was my phone started ringing. So that was really nice. So I actually, the guys from the strawberry industry, so who I'd worked with, multiple years ago, rang and said, hey, we've got an international berry conference happening. Would you be able to, manage said conference and coordinate said conference? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. So things just sort of started happening. I got, Garden Gurus called me and said, we're looking for a presenter. Would you like to try out? And if you're any good, we'll give you a job. So I did Garden Gurus on and off for, I think it was about 5 or 6 years. So, that really helped with my on-camera presenting, because on-camera presenting is very different to presenting to a large audience. So if anyone thinks that they can talk publicly, so therefore they should be able to talk to camera, I can tell you I have seen people fail miserably at talking to camera, even if they think they can. So, uh,
What's the main difference, do you think?
well, you need to remember that you're not talking to eyeballs. You're talking to a black, shiny lens like this, but you still have to have personality. So you still have to treat the camera like it's a friend, like it's a family member. You still have to come across with personality to something that's an inanimate object that doesn't respond to you. You know, if you're talking to a live audience, they might laugh at your silly jokes or they'll just nod along to what you're saying, but clearly the camera doesn't. And sometimes with camera work as well, Garden Gurus, for example, was scripted. So, you need to come out with 3 sentences, 4 sentences at a time, and you must say word for word what the script says. The great thing is that a lot of the work I do these days, because it's for myself, for my YouTube, or it's for clients, sometimes it is scripted for clients, but for YouTube, it's not scripted at all. So yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. And did you get nervous when you're like doing that or were you excited about getting onto the Garden Gurus?
Yeah, I was really excited about it. I was a complete and utter newbie to presenting to camera. The great thing was really that the producers were so caring and, willing to teach. And there's a number of things that I learned from, those guys that, I take with me to this day. And it's funny, I've even repeated a few of the tips that the producers taught me in those first few weeks to people who I've tried to coach for on-camera presenting as well. So it was definitely a really good experience. And, that's led to other things and other work. And yeah, I really enjoy being on camera. And that sounds really weird, I know.
Yeah, there's some people who just like that. There's other people who freak out at the thought of it, but then there's other people who enjoy doing it. But I've had little bits to do with some TV shows and just seen the behind the scenes. And like you say, like the off-camera people are awesome to deal
Yeah.
with. But it blew me away the amount of filming and everything that they do for the amount that actually goes to air. Like,
Yeah.
especially like when you see Better Homes and Gardens at the garden show, they're there for two or 3 days filming, and it's
Yeah.
just a 1 hour episode. And it's
Yeah.
not all about the garden show either.
Yeah. So
Wild.
most TVs want at least, and generally want more, 1 hour to make 1 minute of footage. So they'll film for an hour to get 1 minute of footage.
Is
Yeah.
your behind the garden gate like that as well?
Well, we're a bit faster, seeing as we're working on 10 or 11-minute episodes. So no, the great thing is because the behind the garden gate is my husband filming and me presenting, and there is no script, we can shoot those in about 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah. So
So
and when did you start doing them?
that was, gosh, only middle of last year. Yeah, or towards the end of last year. So towards the end of 2023, we started doing those. And that came about literally, I'd been thinking in my head for a long time that I just wanted to do some video content, which was the way I wanted to do it, the way I wanted to film it, anything outside just my normal client work. And I mean, I love my clients, don't get me wrong, but just to be able to do something the way I wanted to do it. I sort of, said to hubby, this is what I want to do. Do you reckon we can do it? And he's like, yep, let's do it. No probs. So I had a bunch of contacts from MIFGUS 2023 when I was there. And so I just started ringing people. Hey, Nadia, have you got a garden? And people were like, yeah, sure. So yeah, I grabbed a few gardens and we started filming them. And they're filmed in a very unique way in that I literally take people from the garden gate, the front gate, even if there isn't a front gate, I'm still taking people from the front, and I take them through the garden. So it's a walk-through style tour. We use a drone as well. So the drone footage really helps you locate where you are in the garden. And people have said to me, oh my God, now I really understand how that garden is laid out, why it's laid out like that. Stephen Wells, the
Yeah.
horticultural, yeah. So we did his garden, and now his garden's been on Gardening Australia. It's been on Better Homes and Gardens, I think multiple times. And I had a bunch of people comment and say, oh my God, I have seen that garden so many times, but it did not twig how small it was or how its layout was. And now I get it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I wanted.
Yeah, I love the idea because a lot of people like going to because like if you follow someone on Instagram, you see certain shots of it and little bits and pieces, but there's nothing like going to it. And then people like going to open gardens, and yours is sort of a more achievable step to doing that, and also being able to do more of them.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally like you were visiting the garden as part of an open garden, for sure. Yeah. And obviously you can't get to some places. At the moment, I'm only doing Victoria just purely because this is a complete love project. It's
Yeah.
completely self-funded. So yeah, at the moment only Victoria, but I'll never say never to going anywhere else. So
There's someone in Noosa calls you up, sure, you can go out there.
sure.
Take one for the team.
Yeah.
But yeah, even and also it's not just about seeing the garden, but the fact that you're talking people through it as well. Like I reckon that adds value to it too.
Yeah, I love to be able to tell the story of the garden owners, designers. Sometimes it's both, sometimes it's a DIY garden. So sometimes I'm telling the story in quite depth and detail. Other times I just like telling this what I see, and a few garden owners have actually said to me, "Oh, it's really fascinating to see the garden from your eyes, to see the way I see it, to see the things I think are beneficial, useful, amazing, different." So yeah, that's actually been quite fun to see that side of things.
And have you got some lined up for this year?
Yeah. I've got a little calendar over here. It's full of little post-it notes, so I've got a few lined up. I try to have a few in the bank because obviously the editing process, which I'm still doing myself. I mean, you edit your own podcast, but try editing yourself on video. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like if they're that long as well. Like because there's so much more that you want to keep or not with the video, whereas the podcast you pretty much keep it all.
Yeah.
But so it's yeah, I can imagine how much time that would take.
Yeah, so having a few in the bank, I'm at the moment releasing them every fortnight. Look, I would love to be able to release them weekly, but I would need an editor and I would need someone to pay me to film them or some
Yeah.
sort of sponsorship because, as I said, yeah, time and effort involved. Hubby doesn't really appreciate working for nothing.
Ah, it's rude.
I know, rude, right?
You got to think about the value for the horticulture industry.
I know. And I'm like, well, he's a professional photographer. So I'm like, it's photography, but you're just moving.
Yeah, and he loves his work, so I don't know
Yeah,
what he's complaining about.
I know.
So have you been on Gardening Australia as well as
Yeah,
Gardening
so
Australia?
not as a presenter,
All right.
life goals, not as a presenter, but yeah, my garden was on Gardening Australia as a guest where they came and visited my garden. And it was funny because it was Jane Edmondson who came. And Jane's been a beautiful supporter of mine. I've known her since like the job where I was made redundant from, where she was a huge supporter of mine there. And I did actually a lot of public talks and stuff with her. And obviously, I mean, I've watched Jane on Gardening Australia since I was, what, 8, 9? So, yeah, to have her come to my garden and the poor thing, she had to walk up my driveway, which if you watch the episode, you'll see is like about 30 degrees, 35 degrees. It's very steep.
Yeah. Not short either.
No, it's not short and it's very steep. So, yeah, to get all those angles that you see, she had to walk up it about 6 times.
We've slept well that night.
Yeah. So no, that was lovely having her. So if you want to have a sticky beak around my place, then yeah, have a look at that.
So where did so you were taking tours around Mifkus last year? Is that something you've been doing regularly? Like, and how did that come about?
Yeah, so Mifkus, my involvement with Mifkus over the last, gosh, I think it's this year will be, I feel like it's my third, potentially fourth time as the main stage MC, third time as the main stage MC. So that's the stage inside the grand hall. And so I obviously MC all the presentations in there. But last year I sort of said to the organisers, IMG, look, I've had a number of people saying to me, oh God, wouldn't it be nice if you could like actually walk around the show gardens or actually speak to the designers and, hear what they have to say. And obviously you can often speak to the designers, but you certainly can't walk into the gardens. And so I said to them, I'd love to lead some tours around the gardens. And they said, brilliant idea. Let's give it a shot on the Friday night when they're open until 9 o'clock. So yeah, we opened up the tours. There's what was it? A 5 o'clock and a 7 o'clock. So, and they go for about an hour each. And we just walk around. Obviously, you get to walk into some of the gardens and we chat to the garden designers. And if the garden designers aren't there, I can tell the story of the garden as well because I've seen it so much. And yeah, the tours sold out in like 3 days.
Oh,
And IMG were like, oh, okay. So yeah, they plan to do them again this year, which should be really exciting. And a little bit of insight. I think they're planning to do a few more, not necessarily all led by me, but I think they're planning to do a few more. So fingers
Yeah,
crossed that happens.
yeah, it's such a good idea. Like I didn't agree to it with my garden because I was freaked out about I didn't know what the condition of it was going to be like and that sort of thing. But it's
Yep,
such a good experience for people to be able to go into the gardens rather than just standing at the front looking at them because it's such a different experience. So I reckon, yeah,
completely.
it's well worth whatever they charge for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't excessive either. I think it was maybe $30. Like yeah. And it included a free glass of wine as well,
Nice.
because we started and finished at the wine tent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there was obviously some gardens we couldn't go into. Peter Donegan's
Yeah.
lake. We weren't
No
allowed
one
to
bought
go
their
walk.
bathers.
Yeah, no bathers were allowed. And, they didn't want 20 people walking
Yeah.
through on those stepping stones. But yeah, Peter had a lovely chat to us. And as you know, Peter can talk. Uh, so yeah, it was good.
Yep. And so, with being freelancer for as long as you've been, have you been like, do you stress about not getting enough work and or where it's all going to be coming from?
Yeah, there's certainly the income ebbs and flows. I mean, if you look back over time, my income has gone up year on year, so that's going in the right direction. The biggest struggle is definitely just the monthly all over the place. The joys of being self-employed, I discover.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that my husband is also self-employed. So yeah, we often struggle, not struggle as in, oh my God, we're going to be kicked out of our home, but it's that, oh my God, there's like $20,000 in invoices out. And if somebody would pay us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
similar feeling. Like with the Christmas period, all your employees aren't working and they're all getting paid and all your costs are all still have to get paid, like your rent and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it can be a stressful time of year. But yeah, doing freelance, I can imagine it'd be stressful most of the time. If
Yeah.
it depends if you haven't got work, that is.
Yeah, yeah. And it ebbs and flows. I'm looking at my March calendar and I'm calling it my Mad March. I've got one, two, three public talks, the Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show, which I know goes publicly for 5 days, but I have 6 days because I film the day before it opens, where I go around and take little snippet interviews. I'm also shooting two different gardens for MIFGS, the actual build of the garden. So I'll be going in there a few times while they're being built.
Awesome.
So yeah, my March I'm calling it Mad March.
Yeah, nice. That's what you want.
Yeah. So a bit
So,
of,
have you got an agent or anything, or you just take care of it all yourself?
no, I just do it all myself. I don't really know much about agents or managers or anything like that. I see a lot of influencers online using them, but yeah, I don't know. I've contacted a few and there's one that, quoted me $2,000 a month. And I was just like, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, at the moment it's all just DIY.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the type of person you are as well. Like you've got no problem contacting people, and you've got a lot of good contacts, so you can sort of drum that work up yourself. Whereas if it's someone who's a bit quieter,
Yeah.
then they might need someone else to start those contacts, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And I suppose I've got the backlog of work that I can show them, I can be super scripted and do it like this. I can make long format, I can make short format, I can public speak, I can present to camera. So, I write as well. So I do ghost writing for clients. So my name's not on it, but I'm writing it for their website. I'll do writing for a gardening magazine, a good organic gardening magazine I write for. So yeah, it's a real mix of stuff that I do that's paid in that
Yeah, it keeps
aspect.
it interesting as well.
It does actually, yeah. People are like, so what do you do? And I'm like, well, when you ask me,
How long you got?
yeah, how long you got?
And you mentioned before that you're talking to someone about doing on-screen coaching. Do you do some sort of coaching as well?
No, not technically. It's more just people who've come to me and said, I want to improve this or I want to improve that. Or, I've had a few friends, I won't mention names and I won't mention what they were doing, but, they've said, I'd love to give this a shot. Do you reckon you could give me some tips? So, yeah, that kind of thing. So when I worked with Melissa King, we had a business called the Gardenettes, which we did for
Oh,
about
that's
4 years.
yeah.
Yeah, so we did that for about 4 years. So together we teamed up and created an online garden series. And at the time, it was the first of its kind. Like no video content was being created in Australia for purely online. And yeah, we had a bit of a funky 1950s, 1940s dress up style just to make us different. And that during that process, I really got to produce. So be able to produce the video content. Even though we had a professional videographer who was also a bit of a producer himself, it was a time for me to really learn how videos are produced. So using the skills during that time and also having seen professionals do it with garden gurus really gave me that understanding to be able to produce my own video content. And it's funny, once you present and you can produce your presenting, it makes editing so much easier because I produce and present because I then edit. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
I film in order. I tell my husband I want this shot from here. And he's like, why? And I'm like, just give me the damn shot. And he'll get the shot. And then I'll show him in the edit. And he's like, oh, right. I get it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've done it's a not to the same level, but I've done the same when I'm doing making reels and when I like so when I started doing them,
yeah.
I'll just film whatever and then you make something and then I'll see another reel that I want to sort of do a similar thing to. So then I'm creating the content like on a certain angle or filming for a certain amount of time, knowing how like you're thinking of what's going to be made from it,
Yes.
not just capturing all the information, but actually thinking steps ahead. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
100%. And that often is the difference between something looking a bit clunky or a bit, not naive, a bit amateur,
Yeah.
as opposed to something looking a little bit more professional. You know, people are saying to me, oh my God, your videos look so profesh. You know,
Yeah,
who's
doing that.
editing or who's producing? And I'm like, it's just me. Like I taught myself how to edit. That was a lockdown project and a half. But, you know, you can do it. So, you know, if you want to amp up your reels, your video content for your business, even just your video content for social media, look at how you're producing the video in the first place, because that will then help your edit and produce as though you're going, you know, the way you want to edit it. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And also, I reckon you got to don't have too high expectations that you're going to be amazing from the start. It's something you're just going to you're going to build up experience and get better at it the more you do it. And if
Yeah.
you the more you read about it, you're not going to get any better reading about it. You actually got to do it and experience it yourself because not the way someone else does something isn't necessarily the same way you'll do it.
Oh, totally. Yeah, 100%. And, you know, have a bit of fun with it and realize that, yeah, you will adapt and change over time. I went back and I think it actually popped up in YouTube, like a garden guru's video of like, you know, 25-year-old me. And I was just like, oh my God. And
Yeah.
look, it's not horrendous, but yeah, I definitely present differently to, you know, how I did once upon a time. So
Yeah, even with this podcast, I thought I'd been doing it the exact same from the start, and then I went back and listened to one of the start of the first or second episode. Like, I can't believe how bad it is. Like, it's insane. I sound like I was talking in the 1980s. Like
yeah,
now I've got a different microphone, but yeah, it's just
yeah,
you're just going to get incrementally better, even if you're not trying to. You just get better naturally.
yeah, yeah, 100%. It's all practice.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what do you got coming up? Like, are you looking to, is there anything you're aiming to get towards? Like, are you wanting to do like more TV presenting, or is there something specifically aiming for?
Yeah, well, look, as I said, I've got my mad March. Income-wise and work-wise, I'm on the hunt for retainer work and I'm on the hunt for sponsors for my YouTube channel. Retainer work as in clients who want work on a monthly basis. So big shout out to anyone who would like me to do that type of thing. Writing, presenting, speaking, all of that. And then I think in terms of, you know, where I want to go in the future, people have said, oh, you want to get behind the garden gate on TV. And I'm like, I don't know if I do because I like it the way I do it. And I
Mm,
know if it goes on TV, they'll change it. But would I love to work on TV? For sure. For sure. I'd love to do that. I don't know what I would prefer to work on or how I would prefer to work. I would definitely say something like Gardening Australia over Better Homes and Gardens. But yeah, maybe there's a new garden show out there that yet hasn't been created.
yeah. Where's Gardening Australia filmed? Is that in?
They're pretty much filmed in all the states except NT. So they have
All right.
presenters in each state, and then they have, you know, a camera, an audio guy or girl that are often freelance, but you know they use the same ones again and again. And then they have, yeah, producers. So you know they might have a producer in each state or a producer that does both Tassie and Vic, and they float around and yeah, get it done that way.
Yeah, because that can be one of the challenges if you get on a TV show. You might have to be traveling a lot more. So then, yeah, you got to balance what you wanted to do more, like see your family or
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, yeah. And Gardening Australia, and I presume, oh, maybe Better Homes and Gardens isn't the same, but they film a long way out. So when my episode for Gardening Australia was filmed, it was filmed in January and aired in the following February.
Yeah, right. Like as in the next year.
Yeah.
All right.
So like 11 months from filming to air. So yeah, they'll film a long way out,
Yeah, right.
which is kind of bonkers, but
Yeah, because so many things can change in that time.
yeah, yeah, so many things can change. Yeah, I'm not sure why they do that. Maybe it's because they then want a library of things, they want a bank of things. And obviously they probably want to spread stories out, so they don't want similar stories near each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sometimes freak out. I haven't got a podcast episode for the upcoming week, so I suppose they don't have to worry about that. It'd be a bit of a big deal if they didn't have an episode to go to air.
Yeah, well, and it's like I talked about behind the garden gate. It's so nice having a bank of stuff
Yeah.
in the little editing suite because then you're not panicking. We were supposed to shoot on Tuesday this week, but it was 38 degrees, 39 degrees. So I wasn't going to stand out in that. My husband wasn't, and the garden would just look horrible. So we cancelled that, and we'll have to reschedule. So yeah.
Yeah, that can be another good thing about you doing that is seeing gardens at different times of year. So there might be if you go to a garden that's at an open garden, like that might be in summer, but whereas you might go through it in winter or autumn, it's going to be completely different to look through as well. So
Yeah.
I love the idea of that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I still want to do one of yours though, Joel. You're gonna
Well,
have to
yeah,
give me one.
a lot of the gardens we like the best gardens we've built aren't designed by me, so
Oh,
that's changing. We're doing a lot of designs now,
yep,
but then you've got to build it and wait, and it's got to look good. So yeah,
yep,
eventually we'll be having our own, but there's yeah,
yep.
take a bit of time.
No, that's okay. That's all right. You're still welcome to suggest any to me. And yeah, I always mention who it was designed and constructed by. So it's a little
Yep,
bit of a shout out to you guys. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we've got a couple of bangers ones down here, so we'll see.
Yep. Sounds good.
And the last question for us, Chloe, is who do you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast?
Ooh, who do I think would be a good guess? Depends on what you really wanted to chat about, I suppose. Someone that I find that is full of plant knowledge. She's really good at educating, really good about diving in deep for things. So if you wanted to go like full plant nerd, would be Chloe Foster. She's got a brilliant name. Chloe Foster she's a radio host on 3CR Radio. She's a horticulturalist and she's a teacher at Melbourne Polytech as well. So she's amazing. Look, I've even reached out to her and thought, have I said this the right way? If I just is this the right, or is this the plant name right? Have I got it right? So she's one of those total plant nerds, gurus. She's amazing. So if you wanted to full nerd out, she'd be really fun. I like chatting to a lot of female garden designers, so people with a particular passion. So I don't know if you've had Emmeline Bowman
Yeah,
on.
her episode is one of the best.
There you go.
Like she was great to have on because she was answering my questions, but also talking to the audience at the same time. Like I didn't realize that, yeah, how good you could be as a guest, and she was amazing. So
Yeah,
there's an episode well worth listening to.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's brilliant. I can't think of any more off the top of my head, Joel.
Oh, Chloe sounds like a good one because I love plant nerds. Like they're
Yeah,
always great to talk to because
yeah,
they're so passionate about it. So that's a
yeah,
good one.
for sure.
Thank you so much for coming on. I was looking forward to this chat because you're a passionate person in the industry. So I love talking to you about it. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much, Joel, and thanks everyone for listening.